Good morning, Mashudu. It's
Morning,
good morning. It's
morning, Elizabeth. How are you doing?
good. It's very early where you are, and it's still dark. But today is World Nature Conservation Day, and I thought, you being the director of the Lapalala Wilderness School, it's no better man to talk about conservation today. Before I ask you a couple of questions, I'd just like to tell a little bit about you. I remember you told me that you wanted to work in nature conservation from a very early age, but it meant a long education, which is very expensive. And then a good man came along and he supported you, which brought you to Lapalala as an intern. Is that right?
Yes, coming at Lapalala as a senior educator.
The senior educator. So you were an educator for many years. And then
Yes.
how many years ago did you become the director?
That's since 2014.
Oh, 2014. Okay, so was it the beginning of a red rhino? Yeah, that's when it happened.
Yes.
That's a very good timing. I think your story of how you got to where you are today, it's very relevant to what Lapalala Wilderness School wants to do. And you teach conservation on many different levels to the young learners who come to your school, very often poor from disadvantaged areas. And even though you have elephants and you have lions roaming around you where you are, you don't really teach as much about these species, but more about what is poverty alleviation, such as clean water and good soil and the good pollinators. Am I right in saying that?
You are right, Elizabeth, because conservation wouldn't be the way it's supposed to be unless we start teaching about all these other little things that are not that charismatic and are not that popular, particularly because of our community or people within our area. They are really relying on natural resources, either for firewood, for either cooking in their household, water in order to use in their household. And if we can't really look at a conservation in a perspective where clean water as a benefit from the ecosystem services that community could derive from the ecosystem, conservation therefore will be meaningless and it might not be relevant to those people. But particularly also to deal with issues like your little things that are not really taken into consideration, from your spiders to scorpion, insects, which are very critical, and also which are source of protein to those most of the community, because some are still relying on them for food, which then protein in their diet or stipend meal.
Okay, interesting. I have seen you in action at Lapalala many times, Mashudu, and you're often surrounded by dozens of very excited teenagers, in which case you always have remained very calm, and you have spoken with such a gentle authority that you have their total attention, which is, I've always admired that about you. My question is, as many of these youngsters come from difficult homes or difficult school environments, some of them come hungry to Lapalala, how do you still succeed, yourself and your team, the other educators, in connecting the dots, opening their eyes to the natural world and to protect it in the way that relates to them? How do you do that?
I think the main point, Elizabeth, is to treat every child as a VIP in Lapalala.
Yeah.
Particularly because at their home, often young kids are not given that much attention, or they are not really that listened to. They come from a background where either in some of the family there are no parents within their family, and some of them it's their first time to interact with the adult, and given an opportunity to express themselves and to be themselves without having to really observe protocols. And not that we don't have rules and regulation for them to operate in, but without really having a very strict protocol, allowing kids to be kids and to be flexible in the way that they think, because it is only in the way that they think where one could derive the opportunity to teach.
Yes.
But if you're not really allowing them to express what they think, how they feel, how they are thinking things should be, you might not really get to where they are. You might not really speak at relevance to their needs and add relevance to their level of comprehension. So it is very important to allow kids to become kids so that you can be able to interact with them at their level, not as an adult, at an adult level. So you become a child, you play with them, engage quite well, but creating an environment to be more safer for them to make mistake, for them to say things that sometimes they are afraid to say it in their household.
Yes.
But you are allowing them to say it in a very open environment where kids feel free to say things, where they can express how they feel. And creating that environment give kids opportunity to be flexible and to be who they are. And you then get an opportunity to interact with them, teach, seize an opportunity, because teaching is not one way. So we are teaching them, but they are also teaching us, because younger generation also understand things differently than we do. So we allow that teaching to be two ways, where it's not just one way stream, but it's two ways where we are learning from them, they are learning from us, and learning become fun. And that's why we are able to connect with these young minds.
It's a wonderful approach to education that you do, and in such a personal level, and it's such character building at the same time. But it must also be a very intense experience for you guys. Every week you have 60 new youngsters coming through the gates. It's quite an intense operation.
It's a very intense operation, but because we've got a very passionate team and a team that understands the need to educate the young minds and to give the young minds opportunity, because these are children, some of them that might not have an opportunity to just go on a weekend with a basket into a reserve or game park and have a picnic with their family. To others, it's the first time to just experience the wilderness as it is. And because the team is quite passionate, and some of our team members never had this experience when they are growing up. Therefore, they want to make sure that every child in our country have an opportunity, regardless of the religion, regardless of the ethnic group, regardless of their background, but every child having an opportunity to come and experience the wilderness in such a way that they will start feel fulfilled.
Wonderful. Very, very, very well put. My second question for you, Mashudu, today. Conservation need leaders. And I think it needs leaders who live and breathe the air that they are protecting and not sitting in a far distant office. I know that at Lapalala, identifying and nurturing the future conservation leaders is very much at the heart of what you do. How do you see the potential of the youngsters coming through your gates as the future conservation leaders?
Since the inception of the Wilderness School and through the testimony of the young people that they are giving, others now who are in the space of conservation, we are now starting to realize that there is a great need for role models to be able to pass on the baton to the younger generation, because in order for us to have a proper succession plan for conservation to move forward, for sustainability to be achieved, for Millennium Development Goals, Sustainable Development Goal to be achieved, we do need young people that can then take the baton and run forward. But however, those young people cannot just take the baton. They need somebody who can hold them by the hand, who could show them the ropes, who could expose them into the great depth of knowledge so that they can become well-rounded conservation champions of the future. And they start practicing now so that we are certain that when the older generation like ourselves and the other generation exiting the earth, there are others who can then take the conservation messages, take forward the conservation priority forward, and the preservation of the biodiversity will never cease or will never stop, because there is a dire need for those who are very well experienced to now start showing the rope to the younger ones so that they understand what is required, so that they know that they have work ethic and the value to do the right thing for conservation.
Excellent.
And so that the ecosystem services can start delivering attainable results to the community around those nature reserves and those national parks, so that conservation will not just become a luxurious thing, but will become things that people understand that they derive the proper benefit from conservation and biodiversity.
Excellent. A very clear message from you, Mashudu, on this very important day. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to being down there again in not too long a time.
Yeah, we're looking forward to host you. The wood is ready and the fire is ready.
You know exactly what I like.